Today we're working on the install of the 05 to 11 Tacoma Low Pro bumper. First thing you're going to start with is removing some hardware underneath the vehicle. You want to take this large bolt out and remove this little bump extender. Remove this plastic clip here, these two along the bottom, this one on this side right here, and also remove this bolt and the tow hook as well. So now that we've removed the hardware from the bottom, the hooks and the plastic clips are all undone on the bottom. Now we're going to move on to cutting the plastic. So you're going to want to use a cutoff wheel with on a die grinder or an electric grinder. You can cut right through the plastic down in this groove. There is a piece of styrofoam behind here, kind of a spacer that holds the plastic in place. So try not to cut too deep, just go far enough to get through the plastic. So we just made our first cut. We went right up the groove on the side here. And I guess there's not a styrofoam spacer behind there, it's just the aluminum frame support crash bar piece there. So still you don't want to cut into that, so don't go too deep. Cut across that on both sides. Now what we're going to do, because this is all molded into the bumper as one piece, so we're going to cut this off next, get the lower piece out of the way so that we can remove that aluminum crash bar inside and then continue cutting. Okay, so we've cut across the front there to remove that lower piece of plastic. Cut all the way across here so that we have access to this and that we can get it out. So I think we're going to try removing it here first. We'll take these nuts off on each side and the whole thing should come out. I think we can get it maneuvered out from the plastic that way. And there's one more little screw on each side I didn't show earlier. One here and one over here that you have to remove as well. All of the nuts have been removed from the mounting studs on the frame here. You can see on both sides. So we got all those off of there. Now this crash bar is loose and this whole piece can come out. What we're going to do with it is pull it straight forward off the studs so it doesn't get jammed as it's coming off, and then you can slide it off to one side and then drop it out from the plastic. You'll kind of have to pull the plastic forward and stretch it a bit, but it will come out the bottom. Now that the aluminum crash bar has been removed, we're going to finish cutting the plastic. So now you're going to follow this line right where it changes color at the seam here, all the way across, and cut that entire portion and take that out. Okay, so we've finished our cutting up around the upper grill portion, all the way across the top of the opening here. So we got all of that removed, and the last thing we're gonna cut is this little sharp corner piece. We're just gonna get rid of that because it kind of angles in a little ways and wants to poke against the side of the bumper. So what we're gonna do is we just put a piece of tape on there to create a straight line to cut against. Do that on both sides. I'm gonna cut that piece off and then we'll be ready to install the bumper. So we just finished trimming out the little sharp portion that was here. So that's all cleaned up and ready to go. So all the cutting is done and everything is ready for the bumper to go on. So the bumper has been powder coated and it's ready to put on the truck. If you're installing a winch and a light bar, you'll want to do that right now before you put the bumper on. This one, we just have a rigid 30-inch light bar mounted in there right now. So if you're using a rigid light, you'll need to use the supplied mounting tabs that we send. Same for extreme LED. You'll probably need to use those tabs for an extreme 30-inch light bar. If you're using Baja Designs, you can use the mounts that come with the light, and the Baja Designs will bolt directly in. So light bar and winch you'll want to do now before the bumper gets bolted on the truck. But as of right now, we are ready to bolt this one onto the vehicle. So what you're going to do, get a buddy, lift the bumper up, hang it onto the mounting studs, get it in position, and put a nut loosely on each side just to hold the bumper in place, and then continue installing the hardware after the bumper is held up in place. So we've bolted the bumper onto the Tacoma now. We got it centered up so there's an even reveal on each side between the plastic and the steel. We've got our height adjusted up and down. We pushed it up pretty much as far as it'll go. So right now we have this bolt loosely holding it up, and then we have one bolt on the inside that's tight, or nut I should say. Both of those nuts are tight, so it's holding the bumper in position where we want it. The reason we didn't put the outside hardware on yet is because we're installing the frame support brackets on this one. So when you're installing these brackets, you want to leave these nuts off the outer portion when you put the bumper on. And then you put the support bracket over those, hook them around these studs first, and then put it back here and line it up to the frame underneath the sway bar, or above the sway bar, I should say. So the frame support bracket goes on first, and then you lift the sway bar up and bolt it into the original holes on the bottom. So you're gonna put both of those frame brackets on first on both sides, and tighten down the nuts for the bumper on the mounting studs up here, get those nice and tight, and then you can put the sway bar in, and everything should be bolted in good after that. The only remaining thing you have to do is put the plastic supports in here to hold the plastic bumper in place. Now this is the last piece you'll need to install for your Low Pro. This L bracket is what holds the plastic bumper to the side of the Low Pro and keeps it from flopping around while you're driving. So that piece gets installed behind the plastic with the supplied hardware that we send. So it goes right up in this spot here, attaches onto this tab that's been welded into the bumper. So it goes here with the 3/8 carriage bolt on that side, and it comes across and goes through the existing hole in the plastic with the 5/16 bolt on that side. And that's how those get installed. And before you tighten those down, what you can do is you can kind of adjust how you want the plastic to sit against your Low Pro. You can push the plastic over a bit to close the gap and get a little tighter, or if you want some space, you can push it away from the Low Pro and then tighten down the hardware, and it'll hold it in place where you want it. And once those are installed on both sides, double check all your hardware for the mounting against the frame and tighten everything down. All right guys, so we have completely finished the install of this Low Pro winch bumper. I'm gonna just do a quick run through to show you guys where all the hardware goes and what all the finished stuff should look like. So at the bottom here, we've got a 1/2 by 1.5 inch flange bolt goes in there. Inside the bumper, we're reusing the original hardware. That's the nut that came off the frame originally. And behind that is one of the gold flat washers that we send with the hardware kit. Same thing on the outside here. We've got original nuts with gold flat washers, and this one we installed the frame support brackets. So for the frame support brackets, we use original hardware through the sway bar on the bottom, the 1/2 inch by 3.5 inch long bolt through the side, and the nut flat washer and lock washer on the back side. And the only other thing left is the plastic support bracket, the little L-shaped bracket that goes to hold inside to hold the plastic in place. So there's a 5/16 by 1 bolt here with flat washers that go with it, and the nut and flat washer on the inside. And where it attaches to the Low Pro uses a 3/8 carriage head bolt with flange nut and flat washer on the outside there. So that is all of the hardware that completes the install. That's where everything goes. We've got this one centered up and installed how we like it. Now we just need to put the skid plate back on and wire up our light bar. If you have a light bar or winch, you'll want to do that. Obviously, after the bumper is installed, you can do all the wiring and finish that up. And now we should be 100% done with this install.